Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being so patient and so enthusiastic and coming along today. We've got a very interesting talk now. I'm very intrigued to hear what our wonderful panelists are going to say. We're talking about the enabling of the next Tesla. We're really talking about how companies that are developing some of the technology you're seeing around you here, how they're going to scale it up, how they're going to roll it out so that it has a genuine big impact on the future of the way we live and use energy. And I'd like to introduce the panel. They're very, very highly well-informed, highly intelligent people, all of them, as you can tell, just at a glance. George Donoghue from Calvin Capital is sitting here. George will explain what Calvin Capital are up to. Next to him, Andrew Bissell from Sunamp heat batteries, which are here as well. And at the far end, it is Phil Caldwell from Ceres Power. And I want each of them to explain to you what they're doing. You know, in a sense, Andrew, I'd like to start with you because, in a sense, you're the nearest to a startup company. You know, you've been going a while, but you're still just beginning to ramp up, and it's really about how you get from you make one thing and it works, and you go, this works. How do we make 500? How do we make 10,000? How do we scale up to that?
So Sunamp make a heat battery. A heat battery is a very compact form of heat energy storage. You can think of it as being like an electric battery, but for heat, or you can think of it as being like a hot water cylinder, but much, much smaller for the same amount of capacity. So a high energy density hot water cylinder. When we started with a very clear and simple vision, which is if we're going to decarbonize completely, we're going to need a lot of storage for heat energy, just as we are for electrical energy. They're both going to be important. But heat is, in most homes in the UK, about 4 times more part of the problem, or part of the thing you have to solve, than the electrical part. And in the UK, by and large, we don't have heat networks. We have very few of those, whereas the electrical network goes everywhere. So if we're going to solve the problem deeply, and we're going to use vast amounts of renewable energy to deliver our heat, probably, if we want to have nice showers and high flow rate hot water and central heating and all the other things we're used to, we're going to need a lot of heat storage. But we're in a world where people use combi boilers, and combi boilers, we all love them because they're really small. So we better make the heat storage really small as well, and that meant doing something new. And the something new that we did was we took the same technology that was in a little hand warmer that you use when you go out hiking, skiing, golfing, or whatever kind of outdoor pursuit you're doing. It's rechargeable, but it's only rechargeable maybe 100 times. We needed to turn that into the equivalent of a hot water tank with a heat exchanger inside it so you can get the heat in and out quickly, and reliable. So not 100 times cycling, but at least 10,000 times cycling. And we needed it to have super low heat loss. And the journey to get from that idea to here has been about 10 years, working with the University of Edinburgh, working with other industrial partners, but mainly just working doggedly to develop the technology, test it through 2 generations, and now we're at the 3rd generation. I'm delighted to say we've launched it here. It's got A+ rating under the energy ratings, and we're super happy with it, and we hope you all will be as well.
Yeah, certainly, if you haven't seen the Sunamp battery, go and have a look at it on their stand. It's over there. No, it's really worth seeing. But then, so, Phil, you've got, I mean, I've been around your plant manufacturing the Ceres fuel cells. You're really quite a large company, huge turnover, enormous amounts of stuff you're making. And it's how you got to that. There presumably was a day when you had a fuel cell that you'd made and it worked, and you go, how do we ramp this up?
Yeah, so I think we're in the scale-up stage. And for those of you that aren't familiar with fuel cells, a fuel cell is the most efficient way to generate power from any fuel. And where we started was really taking the concept of a fuel cell from Imperial College back in 2000. So again, it's been quite a long journey on the technology. And the difference with our fuel cell is we can run on conventional fuels. So we can run on biofuels, we can run on natural gas, of course we can run on hydrogen, but we don't have the whole hydrogen infrastructure question. And I've got one powering my house in London, it runs at about 50% electrical efficiency, but then when you also recover the heat, it gives you your hot water for free. That's the potential of fuel cells. But over the years, as we've gone higher up in power, we've opened up new markets like data centers, and more recently, automotive. So for large commercial vehicles, acting as range extenders with batteries is a huge market now. Now, to answer your question about scale-up, I think Elon Musk, even with his money, has described himself as being in production hell. I think it's very hard to go from the startup to the scale-up phase. And you need a couple of big things. First of all, you need a lot of capital. And in the US, we're far better at growing these kind of Tesla billion-dollar companies than we are in the UK. We're quite conservative in the UK, and we tend to look a little bit UK-focused. So you need the capital. You have to go where the market is. And quite honestly, all our customers are the big Japanese, American OEMs. So we're working with Nissan on range extenders for electric vehicles, Honda, stationary power. We're now working with Weichai, which is the biggest diesel engine company in China. And that's really important because what you actually do is you leverage big partners. When you're small, you need leverage to get these things to market, essentially. And that's how we've gone on the journey. And then also, focusing on the manufacturing that we do, we're also licensing manufacture, again, because you've got to bring up big supply chains. Again, I'll take the Tesla example. Tesla doesn't make its own batteries. It's buying in that technology. It's the same thing for us. We have the core technology, but we partner with big global OEMs to actually roll this out. We're not there yet. I think we're in that scale-up stage. We're coming up to about 150, 200 people, but the journey we're on is we want to be a billion-dollar company.
What does Calvin Capital do? That's the question. Do you invest in small companies that are starting up with exciting new projects?
If somebody knows what I do and tells me, I'll be delighted. So, so in terms of investors, so Calvin Capital invest in things. Before I get to that, I just want to thank you guys for putting this event on, because a lot of us have invested in EVs and maybe batteries, and we've all come here today and wondered if we're the only EV in the village. And I think it's amazing that you brought us all together here for this event so we can not feel so lonely. So I really thank you guys for this. It's amazing. In terms of what Calvin Capital do, we are investors in smart home technologies. So we have deployed about £2 billion worth of capex and metering technologies and so on. And what we are looking for to the scale issues and what you're trying to do as well is you look at three factors. Who are the people? So if you look at Elon Musk, he's quite a character, and is he investable? And we often look at those kind of things about who do you want to invest in. To get to scalability, the cost, how do you bring the cost down? And to do that, you've got to make it really accessible. So it's got to be really simple propositions, really simple ways of looking at things. And then the third bit is the rules. What's the regulation? How are you going to manage the risks? And how are you going to make that work for everybody? Not just the big companies, small companies, but all of us is in our homes. And how are you going to manage the risk of you spend a large amount of money on stuff, you're going to get the benefit 5 years, 10 years from now? Everybody that's done solar panels thinks the same things, yeah? It's the first question you ask yourself. So we, as investors, we ask ourselves the same questions. And we're talking to all the people in this room about how we can help and how we can support.
Because I know you've done a lot of stuff with smart meters, haven't you? So it's smart technology, I think, is a very key, pivotal part of this, tying all the different... in a sense, if you've got a fuel cell and a heat storage battery and a lithium-ion battery, you need something that makes all those things talk to each other intelligently. Yeah,
so the two big things I see are chargers and the city chargers, and where you're going to find them in terms of companies like Polar, and are they accessible and are they easy? The recent government legislation coming through is trying to encourage a way where you can just pay with your card. So no matter which charger you walk up to, instead of having to be a club of that charger, and that charger, and that charger. So I have 12 different cards.
Yeah.
I'd love to just tap my credit card. Would you?
Yeah.
And that's something that needs funded. So that's the next big thing, is an infrastructure. Whichever way you look at it, we need an infrastructure. Right. Today, a lot of us brought EVs, yeah? And of course, when we had to plan here, we had to think about where we were going to stop. So I had to stop at the Northampton services, and there was 8 Teslas all queued up. So the infrastructure is really key. That's the next big thing in innovation. And I think battery storage is the second thing I can see in the home. So you've seen really big EV battery storages in grid scale. that's moving into the smaller things. And I think some of us are saying, how do I get a Powerwall in my house? How do I make it affordable? How do I get other solutions? How do I get to the point, actually, to some of the things you're working on, how do I get to the point I don't need a gas boiler anymore? You know, all I need is a panel, a battery, and something like your technology, whereby I'm off the grid. And I'm getting out of that whole game of having to pay energy suppliers. And I think that's the next challenge for us all, is battery storage in the house.
And Andrew, I mean, can you, I don't know how many of your systems have been installed now, because I think when I first met you, it was still in the sort of tens. So now
we're over 1,000
right.
households that we serve today with either hot water or heat, with either flexible grid electricity or PV from the roof,
right.
or heat pumps, or gas boilers in a few cases, or all of them working together, that are supplying the heat and hot water. But I think, can I just pick up on something?
No,
here?
do, please.
You're asking what single technology is going to be the big winner, and I don't think it will be a single technology. I think there's a virtuous community here, and we're all floating each other upwards.
Yeah.
And where we're floating each other upwards towards is a zero carbon or ultra low carbon future.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things I think is marvelous is the work that National Grid and EDF and the Environmental Defence Fund rather and others have done together to bring forward a carbon forecast for the grid, so that devices like ours and like the Powerwalls, if they want to do it, can carbon forecast and decide on your behalf, if you want to subscribe to it, when could I buy my electrical energy to charge my heat battery or charge my electrical battery at the lowest possible price. No, not the price in money, but the price in carbon.
Yeah.
And then other people like Octopus and OVO and others are working on how do I also use that to achieve the lowest possible actual price. And then we team that up with heat pumps, and suddenly we've got into a territory where you can have the lowest carbon and also beat the pants off heating with gas.
I mean, I think that's one of the key things that I was really impressed with your stuff with Ceres equipment. It was that at the moment, in all households in this country, it's using natural gas to generate heat and electricity. But it was just when you explained to me, yeah, but it can run on hydrogen. And then I thought, oh, they'll have to refit the whole thing. It'll all be totally different. No, it's exactly the same thing.
The thing that people don't often appreciate about fuel cells is they can be fuel flexible. And a fuel cell doesn't use combustion. So right now, fuel cells are offering a direct replacement, a direct alternative to the combustion engine. And that's why we're starting to go into the automotive side as well. So if you think about it, if you can have power on a vehicle without combustion that can give you range, it's very complementary with a battery. If you put one in a home, you can have your own power plant. So the stuff we do is more efficient than a megawatt or gigawatt scale centralized power plant, but with none of the NOx, SOx or particulates, and with low carbon all the way through to hydrogen. Now in the UK, people say, well, that still seems like a long way away. Actually now, in Japan, there's 250,000 homes running with fuel cells. In South Korea, they're putting in grid-scale fuel cells. We've just done a deal with the biggest engine manufacturer in China. They make 30,000 buses. They make 11,000 or so electric, and they want to hybridize them with fuel cells. So I agree with Andrew. There isn't just a single winner. It's a bunch of complementary technologies, and fuel cells is one of those technologies.
I mean, I think that's one thing we can see here today. There's so many different companies and different products that are around us that you can see are working together. They're not actually, I mean, there is some competition, but there's enormous synergy between all these different ideas. Yes, Andrew?
Could I just say one thing? Could I, first of all, thank all of you, because we can do anything we like in our factories or our R&D centers or whatever. If you don't come out and buy it and make a positive choice, which is the choice that you're making, it will be for nothing. So we really thank you. I think the world thanks you for making a positive choice in what you buy, whether it's to drive, heat, or whatever. It's really important that you're making that choice. And when you choose, keep choosing wisely. So thank you for that.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I would really like to thank the panel, George Donoghue, Andrew Bissell and Phil Caldwell. Please give them a really good round of applause. Really interesting stuff.
Thank
A lot
you.
of food for thought there.